Edge rushers. So the boys that we're losing on the edge, Emmanuel Agba, who I just mentioned as a defensive lineman, you could go either way. Tyus Bowser, who played a hot second for us before he went on IR. Quentin Bell, surprising young talent, was really good in the preseason. We didn't see him again till later on in the year, but he did come on towards the end of the season. And then Cameron Good, who spent most of the year on IR and then came back for whatever reason we designated him to return. Why we would use our designation to return on Cameron Good is beyond me.
Yeah, that's wild to me.
But we did. So those are our free agents on the edge.
Did you say Quentin? Did you say Quentin Bell? Sorry,
yeah, Quentin Bell as well. So that leaves us. Who do we have left? So we have Mo Camara, who we just drafted last year. Of course, Chop Robinson, who we just drafted last year.
Stud alert.
And then some other guys you or I or Josh or Taylor have never heard of. So let's get into the edge rushers. This is the exciting position on defense.
You did forget the two injured players that we'd be getting back that are kind of our biggest edge rushers, and Bradley Chubb.
Oh, Bradley, I'm sorry. JP. IR guys don't show up on the dang depth chart. So Bradley Chubb and Jaelan Phillips, of course. Phillips, I believe, is Phillips a free agent?
Nope, he's got. This is his last year.
2026 free agent, and also I believe Quentin Bell is a restricted free agent, and Cam Good is an exclusive rights free agent. So there's a chance we do get both of them back as well.
Goody.
Sweet.
Listen, I'm so sorry I forgot about Phillips and Chubb, because I feel like they are the crux of this conversation right here.
Oh, yeah.
The decisions looming on what we do with these two players could define what this defense looks like next year. So Taylor, I want to start with you. Let's first talk about these two players. Talk about anybody, and then we can go into who else you would keep, draft picks, free agents, whatever. But let's focus right now on Jaelan Phillips and Bradley Chubb.
Well, I kind of want to start with yours, considering your reaction to hearing Quentin Bell and Cam Good coming back. But if Bradley Chubb ends up staying, he would probably need to be restructured, so that would have to get figured out. Jaelan Phillips is, as we just brought up, he's now in a contract year and he's bidding for a big contract. I'd like to restructure Chubb and run it back with the core trio of what I think fans wanted to see this year, which was Jaelan Phillips, Chubb, and Chop Robinson. But now Chop would actually have the help on the edge. So that's something that is very intriguing to me. And I'm also not opposed to bringing back Agba or Bowser as depth options.
Totally disagree with you.
But in terms of the draft options, there is Mike Green out of Marshall, James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. Texas A&M, we got two guys on there. We got Shamar Stewart and Nick Scorton, and Quay Robinson out of Alabama. The players I named were mostly higher projected picks. Not a massive fan of using another first, especially considering we're right now at 13 on another edge.
Sure.
Unless we move on from either Chubb or Phillips.
But one sec. I'll come back to you in a sec, Taylor, because I think Josh said something interesting here. You said you wouldn't mind bringing back Agba or Bowser as depth options, and Josh, you did not like that. Why not?
No, I just don't. I mean, I think, you have Agba at 32 going into 33 years old. You have, Tyus Bowser going into his 31 years old. Played 20-something percent, 29% of the snaps for us, and then in his time with us, and was injured. I mean, I think Agba filled in admirably. I think he did a very good job when he was called upon this year to fill in with all of the injuries we had. But, if we're running it back with Agba and Bowser, we failed somewhere. I mean, that's not a knock on them, right? But they're no longer starters in this league, in my opinion. And Tyus Bowser is a borderline 53-man roster type player.
To clarify, I'm not saying bring him back and let go of Phillips and or Chubb. This would be like all the core trios here, and they would be depth. I still get where Josh is coming from. I just wanted to clarify there that I'm not saying bring Agba back and let him start.
So Taylor,
that's not a good idea.
Of all the edge rushers you mentioned coming in the draft, it seems like it's a pretty nice draft to grab an edge rusher. Do you have like a favorite there in the second, third round, since you mentioned not really loving grabbing one at 13?
Well, not necessarily in the second, third round, but I'm glad you asked that, because there is something interesting about the Texas A&M rushers. Yes. Whereas I think you can put them on the line as well. Like they are that big and that fast. They're maybe not as explosive as somebody like, especially James Pierce Jr., who times the snap insanely well. But I think that you can kind of knock two birds out with one stone there, you know, at least until you figure out what you're going to do long term at edge rusher and at D line. Just real quick, and then I'll throw it over to you guys. Free agent options. This is more along the lines of what Josh probably isn't a fan of. I got Dante Fowler Jr., who was on Washington last year. Deo Odedango out of
You picked all the names you can't pronounce for tonight.
That's all I'm going for, apparently. Baron Browning from the Cardinals and Clavon Carrison from the Raiders.
Caleb Chason.
There
you go.
The guy that doesn't like Joe Burrow, I think. I think he's been in an interview or something saying that.
Okay. Yeah. That's none of those names made me excited. I gotta say, I didn't jump up and down in my chair over here. For any of those names on that list right there. I do have one guy I really like, but I'll see if Josh mentions him in his tidbit as well. But first, so Taylor, where I don't even know if you mentioned this, and if you did, I apologize. Where did you land on re-signing Chubb? Well, you said you wanted to restructure Chubb. That's fine. What about re-signing Phillips?
Re-signing Phillips, I don't think we should really do anything with Jaelan Phillips this season. Let him play out in his final year and see what he does.
Perfect. All right, Josh, how about you, man? Let's start with Phillips and Chubb.
Yeah, I mean, look, I like both players, right? I've been a fan of both, but I think, like we've said on other podcasts, and like Taylor alluded to, it'd be very hard to shell out a massive contract to JP right now, right? Mm-hmm. I think if you can lock JP up on a 5-year, very heavily incentivized, team-friendly in air quotes deal, I think you do it in a heartbeat, right? Because if he was healthy, and I know if, right, but a player of his caliber and quality, if he was healthy for his whole work, I mean, he's resetting the market. I mean, that's how good he is, right? So if you can lock him up on a 4 or 5 year team friendly, heavily incentivized deal, I think you do that in a heartbeat. There are levers that you can pull when it comes to Bradley Chubb. It's just a matter of if Weaver, right? In my opinion, Weaver is the deciding factor here. If he hold on one second.
He should be as well, right? I mean, he made some good moves last year from a personnel standpoint, so I would hope he's heavily involved in this process this year.
Right, exactly. And if he deems Bradley Chubb, come back from what is a serious injury for a player of his age at the position that he plays, and feels like he can coach him and feels like he can have him contribute, I think, okay, fine. Then you don't pull the levers, right? Yeah. Then you, or rather than you pull the levers so he's going to be here, but that frees up cap space to allow you to do other things. If you're questioning it, right? If you're not sure, if you're uneasy about a player of his age at the position that he plays coming back from a serious injury, then I think you don't pull levers and you don't kick the can down the road and you don't push cap space into future years and you let him play out, because next year I think we can get off of his contract with hardly anything, if I'm not mistaken. So, there are decisions that need to be made there. I'm not in the front office. I know what I would do. I would not touch Chubb's contract with a 10-foot pole unless I absolutely had to, right? I would try to negotiate a team-friendly, in air quotes, deal with JP. And if he says fine, great. Right. If he's not, then you let him play it out and you see what happens and you can play the market accordingly. Right. With an oft injured player. I would like to, from the edge position, there's really only one name that I would like to see back. And that's Quentin Bell. Right. Yeah. I think Quentin Bell, maybe Anthony, well, he's a linebacker. Anthony Walker's a linebacker. But Quentin Bell was okay, right? Before he got injured. But I think everyone else, right? Outside of Chubb and JP, I think everyone else it's a position that we need to upgrade outside of our starter, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Now, from a free agency standpoint, from the edge rushers, Dante Fowler Jr. was on my list of my short list of players that I liked. Brandon Graham from Philadelphia. I know he's a little older, but would be a great addition as a kind of a rotational type piece, maybe a starter, but that plays rotational minutes. Azeez Ojulari from the Giants. That would be probably a pricey one. I would assume.
My boy right there. That's what I was.
I really like him, right?
Yeah.
And then Deo from the one, and I'm not even gonna. I'm gonna butcher the hell out of it.
No, go ahead, Josh. Try it. Live in my world. How about that?
Deo Adeyingbo, right? From Indy.
Sure.
Right? Bam. And then one that I really like that's relatively low on a lot of people's lists is Patrick Jones, the second from Minnesota, only because of the fact that he was in that Minnesota defense. Right.
Yeah. I gotta say, Azeez Ojulari, I actually be a little surprised if he earns a lot of money, but then not so surprised if he earns a lot of money. I mean, in his second year, he had 5.5 sacks in 7 games before going out with an injury. I was hesitant on putting him on my list because I was like, well, we have Jaelan Phillips, we have Bradley Chubb, we already have a bunch of oft-injured edge rushers. Do we really need a third one? Ojulari is explosive. He's tall. He's lean. He's everything you want in an edge rusher. But
he's got like a bag of moves too, which is insane.
Right. But he can't stay on the field. He's Jaelan Phillips again, which is like, okay, maybe we can play him half the season and Phillips the other half the season.
Right. Hey, let's get creative with it.
I don't know. So I'd be remiss though if I didn't mention one more thing here. And oh, by the way, let me talk about Phillips and Chubb first. I agree with you guys. I am not really in my current state on board with bringing them back or signing extensions or anything of that nature, unless, to your point, Josh, JP is an extremely, like, you're getting him for $10 million a year. Okay, let's go.
Exactly.
But if he's demanding the 18 to 22 that the top tier edge rushers are demanding, then no.
Right.
We're not looking at that right now. You can't even stay on the field. Why would we do that?
Yeah, and again, from a talent level, he's a $23 million a year player. But
he's
from an injury level, he's a $5 million a year player. So let's split the difference.
And because of those injuries, he hasn't been able to put up the full season production to warrant that kind of deal either. So I get it from his perspective of being like, hey, I want a big deal because you can see the talent. It's not like it's just us projecting it. You see it in the game.
I wonder if we could trick a team into trading a first round pick for him, like the Broncos tricked us into trading for Chubb. Maybe.
I mean,
somebody might fall for the potential. You don't know.
Nice. Let's throw in Tyreek Hill while we're at it.
All right. Speaking of trades, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about this guy before we moved on, because he is the preeminent edge rusher in the entire National Football League. He just so happens to have demanded the trade from his Cleveland Browns, and his name is Myles Garrett. Now, do I believe in my heart of hearts that Myles Garrett wants to come to Miami?
Yes.
No. I believe he wants to go win a championship. And as much as I want to believe that the Dolphins are in a position to do that, I don't know that a guy like that is going to say, well, I could go to the Lions, or I could go to, the Commanders. I could go to the Chiefs probably. I could, I don't know that he's looking at us very highly on the list. But we still should talk about him, though, because there's always potential that Chris Grier comes out of nowhere and makes the deal of a lifetime here, and we end up with Myles Garrett. Now, let me preface it by saying that the Browns have already said they're not going to move him. I think that's a bunch of hooey. I think that's a stupid statement on the GM's part. I don't know why you would want to play hardball like that. I think every other GM in the league already assumes that you're not just going to give Myles Garrett away, right?
Yeah, that was a reactional statement.
Right. So I don't know how much I believe that Miami will trade for him, but let's just talk about it. What would it take? What would it take to get a Myles Garrett, in your opinion, Taylor?
See, that's tough because there's a lot of stuff going around about, like, what is that trade going to look like if it happens? Like, there's a lot of talk of 3 first-round picks along the lines of the Khalil Mack trade from back in the day. There's a lot of talk about it being like a first and a second, or a first and a third and a player, or something like that. So I don't know what his value could be because he is 29 years old, but he's Myles Garrett. He is most likely going to the NFL Hall of Fame when all this is said.
Going to the Hall of Fame.
He's already. If he were to retire
I'm
tomorrow,
really playing it safe here.
He's in already.
He is the reigning defensive player of the year at the time of this episode. So
isn't he like the only player in NFL history to have over, 12 sacks in 6 straight years or whatever it is?
Yeah. So this isn't basically what I'm saying is, like, this isn't somebody like on the tail end of his career. He's wrapping it up, wants to go win a ring. Yeah, he's about to be 30, but he's still top 5. He's still changes
player
the
of the
game.
year, isn't he?
Yeah, top 5, top 3 at his position, and probably best defensive players on the field, period. TJ Watt, Chris Jones.
I think you misspoke, Taylor. I think he's a top 5 defensive player. That's where
that's what I'm
period
saying.
ends.
Like Chris Jones, TJ Watt. I don't think I can name another player that I could argue is
Micah Parsons, maybe, just from a versatility standpoint.
Yeah, he ought to off year though, and
I mean
Jordan or Jaelan Phillips from Miami. You know,
Garrett hasn't had. Listen, Garrett hasn't had less than 14 sacks since 2020. All right, this dude is an absolute monster.
It's disgusting.
So, Taylor, I tend to agree with you. I think it's hard to say because it might take a lot.
Mm-hmm. I think it's in the eye of the beholder, right? I think.
Right. Josh, you've sent us a bunch of texts with some ideas here. So let's hear them.
Yeah.
Let the people know what your ideas are here.
Bradley Chubb, Jaelan Phillips, Javon Holland, and Jordan Poyer for Myles Garrett. Done. Stamp
Our
it.
entire defensive unit for Myles Garrett. We'll just restart. It's okay.
And we'd probably still be better. Honestly, I think, if I'm Miami, right, and if I was putting a package together, and I'm sure all of us couch GMs will have an opinion one way or the other, right? I am a happy, proud, card-carrying member of the couch GM community, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think looking at the Browns team and looking at our team, there's some things we could offer, but it's going to mainly revolve around picks.
Mm-hmm.
So I think something in the realm of, unless they want Tyreek Hill, and in that case, fine, right? But let's say we're not going to talk trades, right? Because that's a whole nother can of worms, right? So I would say something along the lines of a first, 2 seconds, and like a late round pick swap kind of thing, right? Because what also you have to take into account is, yes, he is going into his year 30. That does not mean that he's by any stretch going to slow down by any capacity. But we also then have to probably give him a massive contract, right? Which decreases what you would have to dish out with that understanding, right? So I could see something like offers, maybe not just for Miami, just in general, where it's like a first, 2 seconds. So like a first and a second this year and a second next year with like a 5-7 pick swap or something like that, right? Depending on playing time, like make it conditional, right? I think there will be a team like, for example, I think he would fit amazingly on the Commanders, right?
Mm-hmm.
That has draft capital that could offer 2 firsts or 2 1s, a 2 and like a 3 in 3 years or something, right? Split it up however the hell you want. But from Miami standpoint, if they want Hill, take Hill a first and a third. See you later, right?
Listen, I don't think this conversation begins unless you're offering 2 first-round picks. If I'm the GM of the Browns, I'm not even picking up the phone if your offer is less than that.
Well, then how do you know what my offer is?
Because I don't.
If you don't pick up the phone, how am I going to give you my offer?
Listen, if it's Howie Roseman, I know he ain't offering crap, so I'm not picking up that call.
That's fair.
Well,
but do you really think? Go ahead,
I was just going to say the thing too is he's requested a trade. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing where, and it's not because of money. Like that's why what the Browns GM came out and was like, oh yeah, or it didn't come out and absolutely say it, but that was a report saying they had no interest in trading him. Here's what he said last week about it, and why that does come across as like, oh, read the room, man. Maybe not the best idea. Is because Myles Garrett isn't looking for a new contract with the Browns. He just wants to go to a new team so he can win a title.
I heard an extremely interesting take from somebody in the know, Daniel Jeremiah over at NFL Network, and he said, he actually did the Browns a favor. He is their biggest piece in terms of trade talks, right? Pretty much their only piece in terms of trade talks. And if they went ahead this offseason and traded him in order to start a rebuild process, the fans would absolutely lose their minds. But now that he requested a trade, they can just be like, well, that's what he wanted, so we traded him, right?
Yeah, we want to honor our best player and a future Hall of Famer,
right, Right. Yeah. The Browns could come away with absolute boatload of picks and look like geniuses because and like really nice guys because they're just doing what their all-star player wanted, or he wanted to go win a ring, right? Like they have the opportunity to walk out of this looking really good, both from a football and PR perspective. But it is the Browns, so I don't actually know if they will.
Yeah, I will say, in a world that we live in where I know this is not football really, but where Luka Doncic gets traded to the Lakers for a bag of peanuts and some dirty laundry, I think it's hard to know exactly what a trade would the compensation required to get Chubb would look like. I can tell you that anytime you're trading a player of his style, his contract that the new team is going to have to shell out is going to be massive. So their compensation will be lower than expected. And I will say, I will be shocked if it's more than one first round pick. I could
Garrett,
see
not Chubb.
that's what I meant. Yeah. Sorry, I was reading the comments. Chubb and Phillips. Armando, thanks for joining the show. Chubb and Phillips can't be counted on like Tua. Yeah, well, I'm with you guys.
Right? There's always somebody who comes in and craps on Tua for no reason. It's like unprovoked.
Well, no, I think he's saying, if I'm interpreting this right, he's not crapping on Tua. He's saying Chubb and Phillips can't be counted on like we can count on Tua. That's how I'm
the opposite.
Yeah,
I would love to believe he's being positive about our quarterback, but
That's fair. Well, thanks for joining the show regardless, Armando.
We love having you here no matter what. But listen, to your point, Josh, I guess the part of me that wants football to be like true to its core would think that it would take at least two first round picks to get Myles Garrett.
No.
But then again, I didn't expect to see Devontae Adams leave Green Bay, period, let alone be on his third team.
Right. And I can tell you this. We all know he's going to end up on the Chiefs somehow. So let's just, because that's just what the NFL wants to do.
Yeah.
All right, Armando and anybody else in the chat, if you have some guys in free agency or guys in the draft that you really love, you think could be a great addition to this team as an edge rusher, Lord knows we need a healthy one, put it on in the chat or put it in the comments below. We would love to hear who your best options are on the edge.